Hey guys, it's Luke and welcome to my duo Mage Solak guide. So a lot of people are struggling to get their first Solak kill. Solak has recently come into the game and it has proven to be one of the toughest bosses currently yet, as you can do it in a duo or a 7-man mode. So a lot of people are struggling with certain phases, especially P4, so this guide isn't all about getting efficient kills, it's about understanding mechanics behind each phase and helping you go and point you in the right direction to maybe give you some hints and tips in terms of maybe getting your first Solak kill. So guys, my duo partner through this was Devon. I've only done duo kills so far. I yet to still get my 7-man, but this is mine and Devon's point of views in certain phases, and hopefully it does help you guys progress, and if you guys are struggling with your Solak kills, maybe to your first Solak kill as well. Either way guys, let's jump into it. Recommended stats for Solak. So what I'd recommend is at least have 90 plus magic, so this will allow you to use a noxious staff or above. 95 prayer, so this will be turmoils, and if you do have 99s and do have the tier 99 prayers unlocked, then go for that as well for the extra DPS. 96 plus herb, this will allow you to use overloads as well, and obviously you can use any type of overload that you wish to, if that's just a normal overload, a supreme overload, or a sal for example. And also 96 plus summoning, this will allow you to use a yak as your familiar, or a steel titan, or a pack mammoth. So this is completely up to you what you want to use. These are just some recommended baseline stats that I'd recommend for Solak, just to make things a little easier for yourself. Recommended gear. So recommended gear isn't always going to be the gear that is shown on screen. You can use any kind of gear you want to. I would recommend at least tier 80 or above because it is a high-end boss. So the recommended gear that me and Devon both use would be a mixture of Acto, Primeval, and also Tectonic. So we have both tank and also DPS gear for certain phases, but I'll explain that a little later. We have a comp or a max cape, a Nox staff or a staff of Saliske, Cinderbanes, Ring of Death, Limitless Sigil, or it depends on you as you do have full accuracy at Solak. Scrimshaw or book, once again this is dependent on you. A large rune pouch to store your runes in, as that is very beneficial, and also a soul's amulet. Once again, you can substitute any of this gear for what you want to bring instead. It doesn't have to be exactly this gear. A recommended inventory setup. So once again, this is completely down to you on how you want to set up for Solak. Personally, I bring a DPS / a tank switch, an Excalibur, overload of choice, a replenishment potion, wand of choice, vengeful if mage, or bring another shield of choice if using a different style. Rune pouches, so that will predominantly be a small one as I will be wearing my large one for extra runes. And once again, extra runes if you can't fit any more runes and if you need to bring any more. Sarah Brews, a super perennial, food of choice, a singularity for 4-tick auto attack if you do want a 4-tick auto attack. A bladed dive switch, once again you don't have to bring one, but it does, it is very handy for certain mechanics. A restore flasks for extra prayer of course, weapon poison, and a ring switch will be very handy. So once again, this is my kind of setup, but once again you can substitute anything you do wish to within that inventory setup. Summoning familiars. So there is 2 summoning familiars that I would recommend in bringing to a Solak fight. Number 1, a pack mammoth, and secondly a steel titan. So the pack mammoth is a slightly above a normal yak. It is a 32 item slot instead of a 30, and the reason I'll bring a pack mammoth is because those 2 extra slots could either be a make or a break on a kill. Those 2 extra food could save your life and potential save your first kill, or potential a loot in general from Solak. So for people who are got a little bit more experience and want to go for more efficient kills, you could also bring a steel titan if you feel very comfortable and confident with your food supply with Solak. Once again, you do not need anything to do with accuracy because the accuracy is already there for you, so the steel titan does the extra damage for you, so no nihil, nothing really needed. But that's also another method, but most people as are going to be learning through this guide, I'd recommend the pack mammoth or yak. So guys, when you feel ready and you're fully prepared and you feel confident enough to go give Solak a try, it's showtime. So the fun begins. Phase 1. Phase 1 mechanics. So in a duo, Solak will have 3 mil HP. After 2 auto attacks, Solak will spawn his first special attack. Run to the orbs he places on the ground. Both you and your partner need to run to different ones to avoid taking damage. After soaking up the anima, a bar will appear just below your health bar which rises. When it gets to full, you will take a damage hit unless you negate the damage with an ability. For example, you can use resonance here. Most people will tend to use devotion when the bar is filling up, and then when the bar has reached the full, they will use a resonance to negate the damage that they're taking from Solak completely, plus the actual damage from the orb. So after the anima has been soaked up, 4 roots will appear on both the east and side of the arena. You will both split up during this part and take out the roots as fast as possible. If one side finishes first, be sure to help out your partner finish his. After a timer will appear on your screen with a flashing icon. This tells you where you need to stand to try and avoid the roots going across the arena. Different people have different methods for this, but we just K'd it. Once the roots are finished, just like before, the DPS will get a bar appear under the HP bar, and you'll have to do the same mechanic as for the first orb, just res or tank it. After tanking the first initial special attack, the DPS once again will get another timer, but during this time, you want to sunshine and start building up your adrenaline. Once again, either you can tank or res it. Solak will now appear in a state where you'll have to do damage to his legs and arms. Do as much DPS as possible. The arms have 60k and the legs have 50k. Just before the legs have died, make sure to have 100% adrenaline so you can onslaught the orb that appears. The orb has 250k HP, so make sure you're both ready. Solak spawns 8 roots, 4 on each side of the arena. Each root has 20k HP. If you don't kill the roots within a set time period, the roots will be transformed into a blight-bound lasher. The HP is then based off the rest of the HP that was remaining on the initial root. The roots do extremely high and rapid range damage, so make sure to kill them as soon as possible if they do spawn. The Blightbound lashes will also spawn if you fail to do enough damage on the legs and arms also. So guys, just before you start Solak, make sure you've got everything you need. Aura, all your pots are activated, and if you are tanking Solak, make sure you're praying melee. If you're the DPS, make sure you're praying range. To start off the kill, me and Devon will sunshine in both the northwest and the northeast of Solak. This will allow you to take out the 2 north roots as well inside your sunshine. So when Solak does his first 2 auto attacks, as you can see, 2 massive orbs will spawn on the floor. Once again, if you do not make it, you will take damage, and if you go to the same one, once again, you will take damage. This damage is around 5k. So as you can see, a bar will start rising, and I use devotion there, and also I use resonance to negate all the damage. So I switch to my staff, and as you can see, I start taking out the roots. If you do have your devotion up and manage to actually kill one of the roots, the devotion timer will extend. So what I tend to do there is use my adrenaline potion to make sure I can try and extend it just to make life slightly easier for myself. But as you can see, I just literally just run around and take out as many roots as possible. If I do need to use any defensive abilities on Solak like debilitate or anything, or if I do get an Acto reset, that's also fantastic, as Acto will also, if it does proc, reset your defensive abilities. So once the auto attacks go through, Solak will then do his first special, or his special during this root phase, and basically as you can see, there's loads of roots that go across the arena. So at that particular time, the base, so that will be me, will then K'd intercept your DPS, for example that is Devon at the time, and then we will start building up after that. So Devon shortly will start getting a special attack. As you can see now, he got a timer. So at this particular time, we use natural instinct and we start building up our adrenaline. This makes this next phase a lot easier. So when you start building up, make sure you get to your 100%. If you do have a planted feet switch, then make sure you do your planted feet switch, and that will allow you to start building adrenaline a lot faster within your sunshine, so you don't have to use your adrenaline potion. So Devon will also get a second bomb, which he can either res or just tank it. So once that is done, all you want to do is start doing damage to the arms and legs of Solak. So once again, the arms have 60k damage and the legs have also 50k damage. So once again, you can also attack each other's arms using stuff like chain and stuff. Is fantastic. when I was talking about books and scrimshaws, what we use is an Armadale book, and it does so much damage to roots and the arms at this particular stage. It's fantastic. Another thing to mention, we also switch out to DPS gear. As you can kind of see, we're not really using DPS here on this kill, but what we've noticed that if you bring DPS gear for this particular part, it does a huge difference compared to Acto if you are using Acto. And then when you start going to the orb, we obviously Onslaught, use your Excalibur, and then if you do get any book procs and also any crackling or aftershock, you're kind of in the lucky zone there. But if that is the case, if you are using DPS gear, make sure what you want to do is switch to Acto just before your Onslaught to get that extra HP, just so you can get that Onslaught off just that one tick longer. So what we tend to do, this is slightly different to all teams, we tend to switch out then, just to make life a little easier. Once again, you want to build up if you are switching, so then I become the DPSer and then Devon becomes the tank. All you want to do is build up to Sunshine again in the same corner if you possibly can. And then once again, the auto attacks will then start triggering again, and then the phase resets basically. But this time around, you are the DPSer and he becomes the tank. So it's literally the same thing, just a bit like P2 for Argo. You just got to do the same thing over again. But this time around, because Solak is not with you, instead of me doing devotion there, I tend to debilitate on that particular attack and then move out of Solak's range. Once you're outside of Solak's range, you can literally just soul split as much as possible and get your health up. At this particular stage, I don't have to worry about Cade or anything because Devon is the base tank and he'll Cade for me. So I can literally just sit there and just do as much damage as possible and just take out my roots on the east hand side as easy as possible and as fast as possible, so I can go help Devon with his last one. So obviously if you're going to go back into range with Solak, you want to pray range. Obviously you might take a 2 or 3k hit that's kind of unnecessary at this moment in stage, but as you can see, I clear out all my roots and literally I go over to Devon. So once you start getting the timer, all you want to do is go search to your base if you're going to do the intercept Cade method, and once again at this particular time you can soul split again to take some HP back for yourself. So this is slightly different. Instead of getting two like ball mechanics here, you only get one. So what you want to do, I kind of did it slightly early, but it's the same concept. You want to natural instinct and start building up for your Sunshine, but as you can see, I did it a couple of ticks too early and it didn't really matter at the end of the day, but it can do. So just make sure your natural instinct when you do get your bar. As you can see here, the bar does raise, and once again at that particular time you can either tank it, which I did, or use devotion and then raise the actual attack for a hell if you want to do that. It just depends, but when Solak, obviously that initial special attack has gone through, you can literally just go back and start attacking his arms and legs again. So once again, just use as much DPS as possible. Throw up your Dren Pot if you want to. Use all your thresholds, help each other out, chain, because it goes to both sides when you both do it. And then if you finish yours, go help out your partners. Just try to do as much DPS as possible. The legs, once again, you can use Wild Magic and also Asphyxiate, and then just start building up. If you get pretty high adrenaline, you can also add a deep impact. Just make sure you're 100% adrenaline. Once again, if you are using tank gear at this particular time, make sure you switch to your DPS gear just to make life slightly easier. But once you're 100%, just switch back to your Acto, and then you don't have to do anything this time around. All you want to do once again is just Onslaught, and that should, if you did get a decent P1 phase 1, if that makes sense, then it should be pretty much simple. If you've got like 110k, your Onslaught, and then if you do get any cracklings or book procs, that's about it, and you should be into phase 2, which we are now. So let's get into phase 2 mechanics. After the Blight Afflicted core has been killed, Solak will now phase into the second phase. At the start of the phase, Solak will give each player 5 Blight stacks. The more stacks you have, the less damage you'll do to the Blighted Anima Storm. This is where Marathor comes into play. You can interact with her and she'll send out a spell which will help you cleanse any Blight stacks that you have received through the fight. There are 4 animal eruptions which will appear in the northwest, northeast, southwest and southeast. After killing each eruption, you'll be taken up and you'll have to spam click the Blighted Anima Storm to deal damage. Remember, the less stacks equals the more damage dealt. Once all 4 have been killed, the next mechanic will be Anima Bombs, which will drop from above. The bombs do a heavy amount of damage if hit by one. The bombs will rise up from the ground and then land back, dealing damage in a 3x3 area. Once the anima bombs have finished, on the north hand side there is a yellow shield, which is a nature's blessing. This shield will be used for when Solak rains down blighted bombs down on you. This neglects a lot of the damage from the original damage. After the rain, Solak will target a player. Make sure to have anticipation or freedom up to avoid the damage. If the player does not move, it's an insta-kill mechanic. You climb up Solak's arm and do as much damage as possible. Solak then repeats another Blight Barrage, so make sure to have another Nature Blessing ready to use. After the second Blight Barrage, Solak will surround himself with a purple tornado which will spin and spawn Blight Bombs at every player. The Nature's Blessing does not reduce the damage on this attack. Once the tornado is finished, depending on the HP of Solak, a similar root attack will spawn from P1 and then be followed by another Blight Barrage to finish P2. Just also letting you know, on this phase you will notice that there is 2 bars, one of Solak's HP and a purple bar also. The purple bar is Solak's corrupted energy. This bar has to reach 0% to forward onto the next phase. So once you go into phase 2, Solak will now spawn an Anima Blight Storm. As you'll now see, you will have 5 stacks on you. This is basically, the more stacks you have, the less damage you're going to do towards the bomb. So what we tend to do is start in the south corner and we start doing damage to the first pillar that is available to us. We go clear our stacks from Meriful after activating the cleansing when you do talk to her, and then we start spam clicking the actual storm in the center. When you are on low stacks, you can hit up to 9k, and obviously the more stacks you have, the less damage you do. If you do somehow get to 10 stacks, you're going to start healing the actual storm, so you never want that. After you're done in there, once again go down to the south storm again, once again cleanse yourself so you don't have any more stacks on you, and then once again repeat the process. One thing I do want to mention is when you're in there, you can still use defensive abilities to build up your adrenaline if you do wish to. And one thing we tend to do is reflect when we are slightly about to come out of it, just because that Solak can change aggro currently and it can be slightly annoying. You don't want to stand in the middle because that once again does more damage to you and adds extra stacks, so if you can, try surge away. What we tend to do after that is split up, so the person who has Solak will go to one side on the north corner and the other person can then freely DPS with Soul Split to take down the second or third I should say storms and the full storms. So what we tend to do here is one person will go up, because when there's 2 people clearing your stacks at the start, you should pretty much in a duo manage to get it down in one go pretty much. But as you can see here, what you can do is you can still spam click around and still move whilst you're up at the storm area. And once again, when you go down, just make sure to use reflect if it is kind of going to be on you, or you know you're going to be taking damage, and just surge away. So the next mechanic is now a anima bomb, but they're coming from the ceiling. So what activates that is Solak saying is rip the earth open, spill the blood of life. So anima bombs kind of start at the bottom, they work their way up, and then they kind of crash back down. These can deal towards 4 to 8k damage, and it can really hurt. One method we tend to do is go all the way to the north, because one of the mechanics which is coming up next will be on the north anyway. We stand on the stepping stones and use defensive abilities like debilitate and also revenge or reflect or whatever you can, you know, just to get the extra DPS and also try to negate as much damage as possible. So the next mechanic that Solak does have is the power of the grove in its purest form. Let it rain down on you. So what you do is activate one of the nature's blessings, and then what you do from there is you have one of your buddies caged, and say if you're going to be the barricade, your barricade intercept him so he can do as much damage as possible. After that you can use a debilitate or use just a defensive ability just to reduce some more damage if possible. So after that, a new mechanic will appear, which will be I'll crush you like the bug you are. This basically means you have to have anticipation just before that goes through, or have freedom up as possible. You can climb up Solak's arm, and this will once again reduce stacks, but also during this period of time it is double damage, so you can literally use all your thresholds and just build up as much damage as possible. When you do come down, once again you can use a resonance ability to get a free HP heal, and that's what I'd recommend if you are running on low HP at the time. So once again it also saves a bit of food. So what we do, not every team does it, but we tend to go to the south after the insta-kill mechanic, after you run up Solak's arm, and we go to clear our stacks again. After that, once again, there will be another rain down, so your partner who will be cading next should put down the actual nature's blessing for you, and then he'll barricade you and you can sunshine. What I'd recommend, if you're going to sunshine, make sure to use adrenaline potion, because you want to barricade your partner next for this certain attack. This attack, you cannot use a nature blessing, it will rip through you. So the best way to negate the actual damage is just to build up and barricade intercept your partner. So the next part is completely down to DPS. The more DPS, or the more DPS I should say you have on this, the less mechanics you're going to bypass as well. But if not, if your DPS isn't going to be overly that great, you're going to look at having 2 root attacks. So it's similar to phase 1, but not very similar in that kind of aspect. All it does is it puts down like roots in one direction, and you can literally sidestep it by going left or right or however you choose, just to avoid the damage. Once again, make sure, because Solak, if you are away and you surge away, it should aggro the nearest target. I think they are fixing this on Monday, so the aggro should stay on you, hopefully, just to make things slightly easier. So just be careful with your prayer if it does switch. Once again, if you are in the south corner, you can clear your stacks if you want to, but you just want to focus on DPS as much as possible. The purple bar underneath is the anima corruption, and you want to try and get that down to 0 as soon as possible. Basically, once it hits 0, that's the end of phase 2 and you're into phase 3. So after the 2 root attacks, you'll now get another anima bomb come, another rain down on you. Once again, if you do have a spare nature blessing, make sure to use it, and then once again, whoever you want to use, it depends if you're in voice chat or not, but if it's in the same rotation, the person who caded before now should become the person to sunshine and just help each other out. Once again, once your intercept runs out, if he is going to intercept you on a barricade, make sure to just use a couple of defensive abilities, once again, just to reduce that damage. So after that, once again, you'll go back to the bombs. We run over or surge over to the north hand side once again, because you're on the next special attack in the rotation will once again be a nature blessing. So here, once again, thresholds, you can start sunshining here if you want to get that extra bit of DPS off. It's completely up to you, but you know, debilitate, devotion, resonance, as much as possible, just sidestep any bombs if they are close to you, just to get rid of that damage or potential sign or death as well. Just make things slightly more easier for yourself. So at this particular stage here is pretty much done. P2 is pretty much there. So once again, you put down a nature blessing, one person cage you, the other person sunshines. You can use up all your nature blessings here if you really want to. That's what me and Devon tend to do, just because we find it quite funny just to use them all up. It doesn't matter at this point in time. As I said, if the DPS is good enough, you will skip phases, which we did here. We didn't get another insta-kill mechanic where we had to free them and literally run up the actual arm, but you know, at the end of the day, it's completely up to you how you do it, and if the DPS is lacking, you just got one more mechanic to deal with. But apart from that, welcome to P3. Phase 3. So phase 3 has 2 different methods. It's either you kill Ethridor or you don't kill Ethridor. Basically, 2 are very different, and it's completely down to you and your teammate on which one you want to do. I'll explain what each of those things mean now. Killing Ethridor. Ethridor has 500k HP and uses range abilities. The player can't battle Ethridor for too long, as you get around 10 to 15 seconds in there to do as much damage as possible. A decent method is to meta inside the arena and then adren pot and activate a sigil if you have one to maximise your DPS output. You can't use food inside the area, so when you leave is that when you can use food to heal up if needs be. If Ethridor is killed, it will instantly skip to P4 with Solak's HP. Killing Ethridor. So Ethridor is one thing that most players are counted now are doing. The mechanic for it has been released, and what happens is the actual manifestations in P4 do less damage to Solak, which is a real good boost in terms of just making P4 a lot more easier. So a lot of people have gone to this method, including myself. So what you tend to do, just like the start of P3, even if you're not going to kill Ethridor, is you still want to go south and clear your stacks as soon as possible. Once again, 8 rings will appear on the floor, and we use the ring closest to Mirrorfield just to do first. Once again, you can go in an anti-clockwise or clockwise manner, however you want to do it. Instead of ignoring it, as you can see here, me and Dan both go in and we both metamorphose. Remember that Ethridor will only target one player, and once again he does use range attacks. So the player who is usually the DPS tends to tank. The reason behind this is the player who is basing will be able to freely use Soul Split. It also is based off of who Solak aggro's first back into the real world. Say if your base goes in first, it's going to go back onto your base so you don't have to keep praying melee or range, sorry, not magic. So be careful on who goes in first. If your DPS goes in first, just be careful when you do come out. Solak's going to aggro you and it's going to hit you with melee instead of range. So always trying to let your base go into the Shadow Realm first, then your actual DPS. But you can also rotate, so as you saw there, I took the first one and then Dan takes the second. This allows us to both use Soul Split and actually gain up some HP coming out. Once again, there are mechanics on this phase. Once again, the DPS will get the Blight Bombs, and also there is going to be, once again, the stun mechanic. You can still use Anticipation or Freedom, and also then get ready to use your stuns as much as possible. So for the actual DPS point of view, so I was a DPS here because Dan is basing, but not every time I go in to help out Dan. Dan sometimes goes in solo. The reason behind this is because you still want to do damage to Solak as much as possible outside. So usually I go in first and meta on the first ring. The second ring I once again come in and use Threshold. But by the third ring I tend to stun outside and once again apply my vulnerability and just do as much damage as possible. So as you can see here, my sun is going through and I'm just doing as much damage as possible. So if this is the case and you do stand out as a DPS, the tank might actually get the Blight Bomb because he's obviously not tanking Solak at the time. So just be careful at that. But that's how we tend to do it, is usually if the DPS goes in and does damage, that's pretty much the cap. You want to get it to about 100k. Once you've hit 100k, if you do keep going in with your tank, then after the 100k done, don't go in as a DPS, just focus Solak as much as possible. Unless you've got Sunshine up, then don't go in at all, because then you can focus the damage on Solak just to make the phase go slightly faster for yourselves. But what you want to do is just lower Etheridor to about, I'd say 30k until you hit the actual 8th ring. Once you've hit that 8th ring and Solak's at the 300k mark in terms of HP, that's when you want to both go in and actually finish off killing Etheridor. Once again, as I said, killing Etheridor does make P4 a lot easier because the shadows do less damage to Solak in the mind. So it's completely down to you however you want to do it. As I said, this is the method that we've pretty much been doing. I've seen a lot of other people do this method and other streamers, but it's how you feel comfortable at the end of the day. But if I was going to say, if people are learning how to do Solak, I would recommend doing this method because P4 is going to be a huge benefit for you. But either way, that's pretty much P3 if you are killing Etheridor. It's very similar to how to do P3 without killing. All there is that extra 500k damage you want to do and maybe just switching between prayers. But apart from that, that's it. It's not much more on top. Just as I said, just try to do your damage, and if you do need a little bit more damage wise, then just don't go to the last circle on the floor. Just get the last 300k or whatever it is damage down to the 300k HP cap, then kill Etheridor, clear your stacks as soon as possible as well, and welcome to P4. Phase 3, so this is where most people tend to struggle a little bit, but don't panic too much. As I said before, there's two different mechanics where you can do on P3. Either kill Etheridor or do not kill Etheridor. It's completely down to you and your teammate if you're in a solo instance. Killing Etheridor does make a huge difference though on P4, and I'll explain a little later why. So at the start of P3, we tend to go clear our stacks as soon as possible. Once again, just go into Mirafidel and just cast in the spell that she gives you. Mirafidel will also cast a spell onto Solak which generates 8 green circles around the arena. Solak must be led to these circles to remove corruption. How you would know that Solak's on top of the circles is if you go and lure Solak onto one of these circles, it will start kind of lighting up and it will start going in a clockwise manner. Another way to also tell is that the actual colour of the circle will then turn purple, meaning all corruption has been freed. At this particular time, Solak will drop down a bomb which does about 2k damage, so you can either raise it, surge away, or just tank it. It will start kind of spazzing out in a particular manner, and also you can just do as much damage as possible. Note to self, there's also a chance to use Soul Split at this particular time, as Solak will not do any damage towards you. One thing I'm also going to mention, if you can start applying Storm Shards on P3 if you haven't been doing it during the fight, I would recommend it highly. But it's completely up to you, but it does make a huge difference for P4. So once that's done, there's one more or two more mechanics that I want to kind of go over. Is that one mechanic is that the P1 bomb that you got, the animal bomb, you'll get that as just purely the DPS, not the tank. So once again, you can use a devotion if you want to about halfway into the bar and use a resonance on the same tick to get a heal instead of damage. But once again, that's completely down to you. One more mechanic it does if you're not beam phasing or do not want to kill Aphrodite is a stun mechanic. Don't worry about this too much, it might sound a bit scary, but honestly it's nothing. So after the Blight Bomb has gone through, basically Solak will give you a message saying, "Give me the life you so tightly cling to." This stuns all players briefly and applying a bleed stack, which will also quickly increase its damage and also puts blight stacks on the players. So if you do not have anticipation up or freedom, make sure you have a stun ready. So it doesn't matter if you do get stunned, because you know don't actually take damage from that, so don't worry about it too much. It takes about 2 seconds for you to be unstunned, and just make sure you have an impact, deep impact, or an fixate up. It doesn't matter who does it, you can have either of your teammates do it. If you do not take away the actual bleed effect, it will start rapidly taking a lot more damage towards you, and it's not going to be necessary that you guys want to basically tank the damage, unless you're maybe using, I don't know, reprisal or something, but honestly it's not worth it at all, so just try to clear it as soon as possible. So one thing about this as well is, as I said, there's going to be 8 rings that spawn. You want to go to the 7th ring, so go all the way around either in an anti-clockwise or clockwise motion. This is completely down to you. But when you get to the 7th ring, do not go to the 8th ring whatsoever. Why is that? Basically is because you want to phase Solak down to about 300k HP. The 300k HP is the cap mark for P3, and you want to hit it just to make P4 a lot easier for yourself. So when you do hit that second from last ring, if it is around about 500k or 400k, just go clear your stacks, you know, make sure you got all your storm shards up, make sure you're repotted, and just do damage as possible. Go through the mechanics, just try heal and just try stay healthy and alive. Once you have hit that 300k, all you want to do is go back into the last circle and then just get rid of the corruption on the circle. This will now lead you into P4. Phase 4. So this is where most people tend to struggle. It's either, there's 2 methods to this. It's either a DPS or a non-DPS rotation. So the difference is, a DPS is obviously what it says. You're falling out, doing damage and trying to kill Solak as soon as possible. As I said, it has 300k HP, and I will go over mechanics and methods in a sec. The non-DPS way is being a little bit more relaxed and not actually going for the full DPS, meaning this is probably, if you are learning the I'll say the more safer kind of mechanic, because then you're kind of guaranteed to kill at least probably 95% of the time if you do not mess up. But once again, I'll go over the mechanics in general. So as I said, 2 different ways. It's down to you and your partner and how you feel comfortable proceeding on this particular phase. My perspective for P4 DPS. At the start of P4, make sure you and your partner both have 100% adrenaline. This is now going to allow you to use natural instinct. You can use it once Solak becomes in target with you and in combat. You want to start building up, because during this phase, Solak will then run forward and run back, and during that animation you're still on damage cap. So once he's run back into the animation, he'll start to kind of going up with his arms. This is where you want to start building up to your ultimate abilities. As you can see, I do Sunshine and Dan does Meta, but I'll save his rotation for later. So the reason I tend to Sunshine is because I'm going to be out here the whole fight now, just purely focusing on my damage. So if you do have a Planet Feet switch at this time, I'd highly recommend bringing it. So also a Steel Titan, if you do not use one during the fight, I'd recommend bringing a Steel Titan in your Yak or in your inventory just to switch out for this phase. You can use Soul Split during the whole fight of P4, but just remember it can still do damage through Blight Bombs. These Blight Bombs can do to 4 to 9k damage, so be very careful. Just make sure your HP is above 9k. Once again, you can use Excalibur and just try to do as much damage as possible. If your Sunshine does run out and it still has a hefty chunk of HP, say like 40k or something, you can also use Onslaught just to try get rid of the last bit of HP. But once that's done, that's pretty much the rotation I tend to use. I don't particularly afford to auto attack, and you should be more than fine with an okay DPS rotation. Dan's rotation for P4. So this clip here shows Dan's rotation and his point of view for P4. So as I said as before, it's exactly how I start. You both do Natural Instinct, and this time he goes into Metamorphosis. So his ideal in rotation is to use he's Wild Magic and also he's Asphyxiate and Shatter. Remember, he can also use an Adrenaline Pot and also use a Sigil as well. Same as me, I can use both, but he wants to maximise as much damage as possible within his meta. When he goes in, he wants to actually tag all these shadows onto him, so he can get every single shadow onto him so they don't actually deal damage to Solak. He'll then use a Resonance or a Devotion whilst tagging all of them up, and then once he feels ready, he'll then Barricade. So once he's barricaded and got all the minions that he possibly can, he'll then start spam clicking Solak. The reason behind this is because once he spam clicks Solak, it starts healing Solak, so for me outside it becomes a lot more easier for me to start doing damage, meaning there's more time for me to actually get off a rotation off to do the damage to finish off Solak. But as you can see here, he just tags every single one of them, gets him all onto him. I know there's going to be a lot of damage, but at the end of it he can also once again use Reflect or Devotion. But as I said, it's very simple. He did sign there as well, unfortunately. I kind of wish they kind of get rid of the actual, so when the damage goes over it doesn't go into the actual like real world instead of the realm, but it's that simple really. All it is a lot of coordination and teamwork really, and then if you can get that down and the DPS, your P4s should go smooth as butter. Phase 4 safe method. So this is slightly different here. So what you want to do, if you do want to use Natural Instinct, feel free to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Your partner should then go straight into the Shadow Realm, whilst I'm outside myself as the DPSer, and I use Metamorphosis. So once again, it's very similar to how Dan's DPS method was. You want to use your Asphyxiate, Wild Magic, and also Shatter in your meta just to maximise your damage. Once again, Adrenaline Potion and Sigil does help out a lot there. So once that's finished, you want to go into the realm and start tagging any manifestations that your partner currently has not been tagged. Your partner then should also intercept and devotion you, so you can still use Soul Split at this particular time. Your partner then should also build up to Cade, and then once there's any manifestations left, tag him. He should then Cade intercept you, and then once again you can still use abilities whilst you heal Solak. Once again, you can still pray Soul Split at this particular time. So when he has Cade intercepted you, you want to spam click Solak and try to get it to 100k, if not as close as possible. When there's one remaining manifestation, your partner should then go out, but be careful, make sure to use a Resonance at this particular time because you can get hit for a 9k. So he then should do as much damage as possible, use his thresholds, if he can, use Metamorphosis as well and just try to do as much damage as possible. When you're starting to kind of struggle with the manifestations, your partner should then start to come back in and help you out. This time round it switches, so now you become the interceptor. You then devotion intercept him so he can now use Soul Split. Because one thing I forgot to mention also is when you're inside the actual Shadow Realm, you cannot eat. You cannot do anything. You have to rely on your abilities. So once again, I build up to Cade and then Cade intercept him, and once again you can use Soul Split and just tag any manifestations that are currently there and just spam click Solak as much as possible. If there is 2 or 3 after the actual Cade, make sure you take them out before you even attempt to go back into the real world. This will just help you and your partner out a lot more. Once again, if you do want to use Sunshine and other abilities then just to make yourself a little easier, then feel free to, like Debilitate, Resonance, anything you can get HP or do more damage to. So as you can see here, I literally go out and I just do as much damage as possible. I use my thresholds. I also reprisal because I said the 9k hit can come through, which is, as I said, it is there, so it can come at any time. I'm not quite sure how the mechanic works on that quite yet, but just be careful and just eat up when you get out there or use a Resonance. So once your rotation is finished and your partner needs your help, go back into the actual Shadow Realm and once again tag any manifestations around. He should then one intercept you and devotion you. You can once again use Soul Split and just try to do as much damage as possible. He should then once again, as I said, in the same rotation, build up to Cade, intercept you and once again heal Solak. So that's what you tend to do really for this method. As I said, if things do go right and you do not mess up with your devotions and your intercepts and everything, there should be no problem, and also just making sure your HP is high pretty much throughout the whole of the fight. But once you get that method down and you feel comfortable with who's going first and who's going second, it pretty much is just keep doing the same method back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's all you need to do. And that's pretty much the safe method. As I said, it's 95% chance unless you kind of mess it up. But with this method, you do a little bit of DPS, you go in, do the manifestations, go out, more damage, partner goes in, and you keep just switching it between. The only difference I'm going to say is that right at the end when it's about 40k HP, what we tend to do is that the person who would then go out at the time will just full out DPS. The person inside the actual realm is just going to do as much damage as possible to all the manifestations. Just try and get all the manifestation on you, then try to Cade and then just literally just go full out on your heal. But apart from that, that's it. As I said, it's a very simple method. And if you can get it down to the T, and if you don't, as I said, if you don't feel too comfortable with your DPS, this is probably the method you want to go forward with. But as I said, there's two different methods to this, the DPS or the safe. As I said, I learned using the safe method, and then I started going with Dan. He taught me the DPS method. Personally, I prefer the DPS method because it's a lot more cleaner. You don't have to spend as much time on P4, but if you don't feel comfortable with your damage output on the P4, getting that 300k, just stick to the safe method. Either way, you should have no troubles whatsoever by getting the kill either the slow way or the fast way. Guys, once again, thank you so much for watching the guide. Hopefully these kind of tips and tricks and kind of leading you through all the different mechanics on each phase does help you out for anyone struggling on certain phases. I know a lot of people have been asking me, how do you do P4? Because I think a lot of people do struggle on P4, so now hopefully I've explained it well enough for you guys to kind of jump into a kill and hopefully get a kill if it is going to be for your first time, or maybe just a little bit more consistency on P4 to get consistent kills in the future. But guys, once again, thank you so much for watching though guys, I really do appreciate it. As I said before, hopefully it does help you guys out. This is what I make guides for, to help you guys out, maybe get your first kills, or as I said, consistent kills. So it kind of puts a good smile on my face because my next guide did go down really well, so I appreciate all the nice comments. And once again, if there is anyone who does need any help in terms of maybe just doesn't understand anything, I'll try going into a little bit more detail if you do want to leave a comment in the description. But once again guys, thank you so much for watching, take it easy guys, and thank you for all the amazing support.